morning. This is Fighting Fear with Kevin Ashworth. I'm an anxiety therapist in Portland, Oregon that specializes in the treatment of anxiety disorders, working with adults, children, teens. I do a lot of work with parents. So I'm the co-director of Northwest Anxiety Institute, and I'm doing video blogs, just short clips with information about anxiety. This week I want to talk about parenting issue. I had an awesome question from a parent recently about how much do I push my kid. It's important to think of a couple of things when considering how much you push them, and what she meant was how much pressure do I put on them to perform a certain behavior, to do something, whether that's attending school or going to ballet or piano lessons or just getting out of the house or following directions. The decision to push or put pressure on your kid really has to do with the reason that they're not doing something that you would like them to do. And sometimes they can't articulate that reason necessarily, and so putting pressure on them is going to do one of two things. It's going to help them succeed by helping them behave differently, and so if you put enough pressure on them, like, hey, you need to get up and do this, they might learn that the thing that they were scared to do, they're actually able to do, and that can build confidence. At the same time, that amount of pressure can also be very shaming and damaging to your relationship and to also their ego and their confidence. So the idea of putting pressure on a kid to kind of motivate them to do more is really from this premise that motivation is the issue, and I don't think that's necessarily the case. So many kids avoid doing things because of their anxiety. We know from previous videos that I've done that avoidance is the number one coping skill. And so putting pressure on them without them being kind of involved in that decision-making process might only make them feel worse. Excuse me. We also know that when people feel ashamed of their behavior or kind of demoralized because they're not doing what they want to do, they usually engage in more shaming behaviors. And so when we tell a kid, like, hey, everybody else is able to make it to basketball practice, why don't you just go? There's nothing wrong with it. That might actually make them kind of pull back even more. There's no right answer to how much pressure you should put on a kid or not, but what I tell parents is this. Be strategic about what you're going to do. Know that if you are, quote-unquote, forcing your kid to go to soccer practice or school or piano lessons or go and hang out with a friend, and they have a positive experience, have a conversation about why you kind of put more pressure on them so they were able to be successful, that you knew that their fear was getting in their way of being successful. If putting pressure on them makes them recoil, stay in their bedroom even more, don't use the same strategy again. Don't come at it with more intensity. Don't come at it with more kind of frustration and impatience. And certainly don't use shaming statements like you're lazy or scared or things like this. So my best suggestion is, we know getting your kids to behave differently is really, really important. Understanding, though, why they're avoiding is most important, but sometimes they can't articulate that. So a little bit of pressure can help them get there, as long as there's conversations about how they felt. And then most importantly, if a little bit of pressure makes them withdraw, stop doing that. Now we need to come at it with a different strategy, and intensity does not help. So keep in mind that intense reactive parents model intense and reactive kids. Anxious parents model anxious kids. So be strategic. Most of your child's behaviors are very predictable, so if they avoid certain things, whether that's after school activities or even school, they likely avoid those things regularly. So you've got time. Make a plan and really be decisive about when you're going to have conversations with them. Don't have conversations about them getting to school at 7 a.m. in the morning when they've decided not to go to school. Have those conversations in the evening. Don't have conversations about bedtime at bedtime. Have them at 5 o'clock, and so on and so forth. And then if your strategy of motivating your kid isn't working, it's time that you really reconsider what you're doing and have some conversations about what can be done differently. The old kind of conventional wisdom that telling your kid to do something based on a contingency will be effective is just not true, and that's a discussion for another video. So how much pressure? It's hard to say. Experiment with it a little bit, but be very purposeful. I'm not sure if that's a word. Be purposeful about what you're doing, or have purpose, I guess. Thanks so much. Please, if you like this, please subscribe to my channel, Fighting Fear with Kevin Ashworth. Go to our Facebook page, northwestanxiety.com. Send me an email, kevin@nwanxiety.com, or follow us at Twitter @nwanxiety. Please feel free to ask questions, and I invite comments. Thanks for watching. Take care.